Welcome back to Whispers in the Dark. Before tonight's story begins, make sure the lights are off, the room is quiet, and nothing is standing behind you in the reflection of your screen. This is a story about a woman who cannot trust her own mind, a house that should have been empty, and the voice beneath the floorboards that knew her name before she ever heard it. Stay until the end, because some doors only open when you stop listening. Now, let's begin. My name is Elaina Vane, and the doctors told me the first rule was not to argue with the voices. That was what Dr. Holloway said with his kind eyes and his silver pen resting against his bottom lip. He had a warm office on the 4th floor of St. Clement's Behavioral Health Center, where the windows looked down over a parking lot full of rainwater and dying trees. He always wore cardigans, even in summer. He smelled faintly of coffee, hand soap, and mint. Behind him, framed certificates hung in perfect lines, like proof that the world could be understood if you paid enough money to the right person. Do not argue with the voices, Elaina, he told me. Acknowledge them if you must, then redirect. You are safe. They are symptoms. They cannot hurt you. I nodded because nodding was easy. Nodding made people think you were improving. But I knew something he did not. Sometimes symptoms had fingers. Sometimes they scratched from inside the walls. Sometimes they waited until 3 a.m, when the whole world became a wet black lung, and they pressed their mouths to the vents and whispered the things your dead mother used to say when she was angry. Pretty girls should never sleep with their backs to the room. I heard that sentence for the first time when I was 6 years old. My mother said it while brushing my hair so hard that my eyes watered. She stood behind me in the mirror, thin and tall, with a face like a candle that had burned too close to a window. Her fingers smelled of cigarette ash and rose lotion. She pulled the brush through my hair again and again, tearing through knots, watching me watch her. Pretty girls should never sleep with their backs to the room, she said. That is how things learn where to enter. When I was a child, I thought she meant robbers, ghosts, or men. When I was older, I thought she meant shame. After she died, I thought she meant nothing at all. Then the thing in the house said it, and it said it in her voice. I moved into the house on Bellwether Lane in late October, 6 months after my mother's funeral, 3 months after my first hospital stay, and 2 weeks after my husband, Daniel, took his wedding ring off and placed it on the kitchen counter between us, like a coin for the dead. He was a good man, everyone said, patient, gentle. He had brown eyes, broad shoulders, and a habit of rubbing the bridge of his nose when he was exhausted. During my bad nights, he would sit on the bathroom floor while I crouched in the tub, shaking under a towel, convinced that my blood had turned to insects. He would say my name over and over until it sounded less like a word and more like a rope. Elaina, he would say. Elaina, look at me. There are no bugs. You are safe. But safety is a story healthy people tell each other so they can sleep. The last night we lived together, I found Daniel standing in the hallway at 2 in the morning, staring at the closed door of our spare room. "There is someone in there," I whispered, his face folded with tired sadness. "There is no one in there. I can hear her breathing. Elaina, she is standing in the corner." He opened the door. He turned on the light. Boxes, old books, a laundry basket, nothing else. I knew what he saw. I knew what I saw too. In the corner, behind the stacked boxes, something pale and long pressed itself flat against the wall. Its face was hidden by curtains of wet black hair. One eye shone through, wide and milky, fixed on me. Its mouth was open too far. Daniel did not see it. That was how I knew it was real. A hallucination wants attention. It jumps, it screams, it performs. Real things know how to be patient. The next morning, Daniel left for work and did not come home until after dark. When he did, he brought his sister with him. Her name was Claire. She had sharp cheekbones, quiet shoes, and a voice that sounded like apology wrapped around accusation. They sat me down at the kitchen table. Daniel cried before I did. Claire kept her hand on his back. I remember looking past them to the window above the sink. Outside, our yard was blue with evening. The old apple tree shifted in the wind, its bare branches tapping the glass like long fingers asking to be let in. Daniel said he loved me. He said he was afraid. He said he could not keep doing this. I remember laughing, not because anything was funny, but because the thing in the spare room had followed him into the kitchen and was standing right behind his chair, bending slowly until its mouth hovered beside his ear. It looked at me with its one visible eye. Then it smiled. After that, I signed papers. I swallowed tablets. I packed boxes. My Aunt Livia offered me the house on Bellwether Lane because nobody else wanted it, and because she said grief needed space to lose its echo. The house had belonged to my grandmother before she died. I barely remembered her, only the smell of lavender powder and old pennies, her thin hand squeezing mine too tightly, her breath clicking in her throat. She had lived alone for 21 years after my grandfather disappeared. Not died, disappeared. One evening, he went down into the cellar to check the fuse box during a storm, and he never came back up. The police found the cellar door locked from the inside. There was no window down there, no tunnel, no body, just his work boots placed neatly side by side at the bottom of the stairs, filled to the ankle with gray water, though the cellar floor was dry. My mother never spoke of it. When I asked, she slapped me once, not hard enough to bruise, but hard enough to make the question leave my mouth forever. Aunt Livia gave me the keys in a small brown envelope. She would not meet me at the house. "You remember where it is," she said over the phone. "Barely. There is food in town. Pharmacy too. Keep the porch light on. The wiring is old." She paused. "Do not use the cellar." I almost laughed. "Aunt Livia, I am serious, Elaina. Is something wrong with it? There was a sound on her end of the line. A breath, a swallow. Your grandmother had ideas near the end. Ideas? Just do not go down there. Promise me. People always wanted promises from me. As if my mind had not become a room with broken locks. I promised. Bellwether Lane sat at the edge of a dying village called Ash Mill, where the roads narrowed into strips of cracked blacktop. And every yard seemed to contain either a rusted swing set or a dog that never barked until you had passed. The house stood alone at the end of the lane, hunched beneath sycamore trees that had shed most of their leaves. It was tall and narrow, with faded white siding, dark green shutters, and a roof that sagged slightly in the center, like it was tired of holding up the sky. The windows were thin and many. They looked down on me with the blank patience of old women. I arrived just before dusk. The air smelled of wet leaves, distant smoke, and river mud. My car tires whispered over the gravel drive. When I turned the engine off, silence fell so suddenly I could hear the ticking of hot metal beneath the hood. For a moment, I sat still with both hands on the wheel. In the rear view mirror, the back seat was empty. I checked twice, then 3 times. Medication made me slow. It wrapped my thoughts in wool. It made colors duller, voices softer, my hands heavier. It made it easier to pass as normal and harder to know when something was truly wrong. I carried my suitcase to the porch. The steps bowed beneath me. The front door was painted red once, but the color had peeled into dark scabs. I unlocked it and pushed it open. The smell inside was immediate. Dust, old wood, mildew, something floral that had gone sour. The house seemed to inhale around me. I stepped into a narrow hall with faded wallpaper patterned in tiny blue flowers. The floorboards creaked under my shoes, one after another, each sound moving ahead of me like a warning. To my left was the sitting room, crowded with sheet-covered furniture that rose from the shadows in lumpy shapes. To my right, a dining room with a long table and a tarnished chandelier. Straight ahead, the hallway led to the kitchen and the cellar door. I did not look at the cellar door at first. I made myself busy. That is another thing doctors teach you. Routine, grounding, use your senses. Name 5 things you can see, 4 you can touch, 3 you can hear, 2 you can smell, 1 you can taste. I could see dust on the banister, dead flies on the windowsill, a cracked mirror above a small table, my suitcase at my feet, and a dark stain on the ceiling shaped like a hand. I could touch my coat, my keys, the wall, the pill bottle in my pocket. I could hear the wind, my breathing, and a soft sound somewhere below me. A scrape. I stopped. The house settled. I listened until my ears rang. Nothing. You are safe, I whispered. The words went nowhere. I chose the upstairs bedroom at the front of the house because it had the least mold and the largest window. The bed was still there, a heavy wooden frame with brass knobs greened by age. The mattress had been wrapped in plastic, which crackled under the clean sheets I brought with me. Across from the bed stood an antique wardrobe, tall and dark, with a warped mirror in its door. My reflection looked stretched in it, taller than I was, thinner than I was, my eyes too large in my pale face. I had always been told I was pretty. Even at the hospital, when I had not washed my hair in days, and had bitten the inside of my cheek bloody to stop myself from screaming. One of the nurses had said it like comfort. "You have such a pretty face, Elaina," as if beauty had ever saved anyone. I unpacked my clothes. I lined my medication on the bedside table. Antipsychotic, sleep aid, anti-anxiety as needed. 3 orange bottles glowing in the lamplight like emergency flares. At 9, I ate soup from a can. At 10, I called Daniel. He did not answer. I told myself I was glad. At 10:30, I took my pills. At 11, I lay in bed on my right side, facing the door, never with my back to the room. The house ticked and sighed. Branches dragged lightly across the window glass. Pipes knocked in the walls. Somewhere downstairs, a loose shutter tapped in the wind. I almost slept. Then, from beneath the floor, I heard a woman whisper my name. Elaina. My eyes opened. The room was black, except for the moonlight at the window. The wardrobe mirror showed a pale rectangle of bed, a pale oval of face, my face, watching itself. Elaina. The whisper came again, not from the room. Below. I sat up slowly, clutching the blanket to my chest. My heart began to beat with that awful, hollow force that makes the body feel like a fist. I waited for more. I waited for words. I waited for the ceiling stain to move, for the wardrobe door to open, for my mother to appear in the corner with her hair brushed smooth, and her mouth full of grave dirt. Nothing happened. I turned on the lamp. The room became ordinary in the way strange rooms do at night. Ordinary only because light is a liar. I took a pill with water from the glass beside my bed. My hands shook so badly, the rim clicked against my teeth. "It is not real," I said. The floor beneath the bed answered with 3 soft knocks. I did not sleep until dawn. Morning made me ashamed. That is the cruelest part. Terror comes at night with teeth, then daylight arrives carrying receipts. It shows you the chair was only a chair, the shadow was only a coat, the whisper was the wind passing through gaps in old wood. Morning makes you complicit in your own humiliation. I brewed coffee in my grandmother's yellow kitchen. The cabinets were painted cream, chipped around the handles. Lace curtains hung over the sink. The window looked out over the back garden, which was nothing but weeds, dead rose canes, and a stone bird bath filled with black rainwater. Beyond the garden stood a line of trees. Between 2 trunks, I thought I saw a woman watching the house. I blinked. Only branches. I drank coffee until my stomach hurt. Then I inspected the cellar door. It stood at the end of the kitchen, painted the same cream as the cabinets. A small iron latch held it closed. Someone had nailed a strip of wood across the frame near the bottom, not enough to keep it shut, just enough to make opening it inconvenient. On the door itself, faint scratches gathered around the latch. Not random scratches, marks from fingernails. Old ones, deep ones. I touched them with one finger. A memory rose so suddenly that I dropped my mug. I was 9 years old, standing in this very kitchen. My mother was younger than I ever remember her being, her face still full, her hair still bright. My grandmother stood by the cellar door in a pink nightgown, barefoot, holding a hammer. Her mouth trembled. "There is a mouth under the house," my grandmother said. My mother grabbed my arm. "That is enough. It eats the men first," my grandmother whispered. "Then it wears the women." My mug shattered across the floor. Coffee spread between the tiles, dark and steaming. I cleaned it quickly, crying without sound. After that, I decided I would not stay more than 1 week. Long enough to prove I could be alone. Long enough to give Daniel the space he wanted. Long enough to show everyone that I was not helpless. The second night, I dreamed of my mother. She was sitting at the foot of my bed, wearing the navy dress we buried her in. Her hair was damp. Water ran down her cheeks, though her expression was calm. Her lips were sewn together with black thread. I knew I was dreaming because I could smell the cemetery soil. She raised one hand and pointed to the wardrobe. I woke with a gasp. The wardrobe door stood open. I stared into its black interior. I had closed it before bed. I remembered closing it because the mirror unnerved me. Now it yawned wide, revealing hanging space, empty shelves, and a lower drawer that had slid open several inches. My first thought was not ghost. My first thought was Daniel. Daniel had driven out in the night to check on me. Daniel had let himself in somehow. Daniel was downstairs right now, sad and sorry, making tea. I said his name. No answer. I got out of bed. The floor was cold. I crossed to the wardrobe and looked inside. The drawer contained old linens, yellow with age, folded around something square. A diary. The cover was cracked black leather. The pages smelled of mildew and dust. On the first page, written in my grandmother's thin, slanted hand, were the words, "I must write it down while I am still myself." I sat on the edge of the bed and read until morning. Most of it was ordinary at first. Weather, bills, church women, my grandfather's back pain, my mother's grades. Then the entries changed. June 4th. Heard Edwin speaking in the cellar, though he was asleep beside me. Voice came through the floorboards. It said my name. June 7th. Found Edwin standing in the kitchen at 3 in the morning. Cellar door open. He said he smelled oranges. There are no oranges in the house. June 12th. Dreamed I gave birth to a black rope. It crawled away crying like my baby. June 16th. Edwin has begun to dig at the cellar wall. He says something is calling from behind the stone. He says it sounds like me. June 18th. I saw Mother in the dining room. She has been dead 19 years. She told me to open the cellar and let the house breathe. After that, the handwriting grew worse. Some pages were torn. Others had been scribbled over until the paper nearly ripped. One passage had been circled again and again. It learns the voice you obey. I read those words until they blurred. Then I heard my mother call from downstairs. Elaina, breakfast. The diary fell from my hands. For one perfect second, I was a child again. My mother was alive. The house was warm. The world had not yet split open inside my head. Then the second passed. The voice came again. Elaina, come eat before it gets cold. It was her exactly. Not the voice from her hospital bed, thin and damp with morphine. Not the voice from the funeral home when my mind supplied words for her closed mouth. This was my mother at 35. Sharp, impatient, alive. I backed away from the bedroom door. My phone was on the bedside table. I grabbed it and called Aunt Livia. No service. Of course. The house listened. Elaina, my mother called. Do not make me come up there. The hallway outside my bedroom creaked. Once, then again. Slow, careful steps on the stairs. I wanted to hide in the wardrobe, absurd as that sounds. I wanted to crawl into the dark and pull the door shut and become a little girl small enough to survive. Instead, I stood frozen as the steps reached the landing. A shadow moved beneath my door. Long, too long. Then came a knock. 3 gentle taps. Elaina, said my mother. Pretty girls should never lock their doors. I do not remember screaming. I remember being on the floor with my back against the bed, hands pressed over my ears, making a sound like an animal choking. I remember the doorknob turning left and right. I remember the whisper changing, not all at once, but slowly, like someone twisting a radio dial through stations. My mother, Daniel, Dr. Halloway, Aunt Livia, my own voice. Open the door. Then silence. When I finally stood, the sun was up. The hallway was empty. At the bottom of the bedroom door, someone had pushed a single sheet of paper through the gap. It was a page from my grandmother's diary. Only one sentence remained legible. Do not answer it when it sounds like love. I should have left then. I know that is what you are thinking. You are imagining yourself braver than me, smarter, saner. You are imagining that if a dead woman called you from a locked house, you would grab your keys and run barefoot into the road without looking back. Maybe you would, but fear does not always make people run. Sometimes it makes them practical. Sometimes it makes them angry. Sometimes it digs its nails into your throat and says, stay, because leaving means admitting that the monster is stronger than your will. And I had lost so much already. My husband, my home, my reputation, my certainty. I could not lose my own mind without a fight. So I did what sick people are trained to do. I documented. I found an old camcorder in a closet downstairs, one of those heavy black things from the early 2000s with a flip-out screen and a strap for your hand. It still worked after I charged the battery. I carried it through the house, filming every room in the afternoon light. "This is the sitting room," I said, hearing how flat my voice sounded. No one here. The sheets over the furniture stirred slightly. Probably a draft. I filmed the dining room, the kitchen, the stairs, the upstairs rooms, the empty wardrobe. Then I turned the camera toward the cellar door. I stood there for a long time. The little screen showed the door in grainy blue light. The scratches around the latch looked darker on video, almost wet. My hand trembled. "I am not going down there," I said. From behind the door came a soft exhale. The camera died. That night, the house began to imitate Daniel. At first, it was subtle. A sigh from the hallway, the creak of the floor in the pattern of his step, the sound of a man rubbing his tired face in the dark. Then, near midnight, his voice came through the vent beside my bed. "Elaina." I sat upright, every nerve burning. "Elaina, please." I turned on every lamp in the bedroom. The vent was a black rectangle near the floor, furred with dust. "Daniel," I whispered. I knew it was not him. I knew. But the heart is stupid meat. It leaps toward whatever sounds like salvation. "I got your message," the vent said. I had left no message. "I came to get you." "No, I am downstairs." "No, please, baby, I am scared." I bit my hand hard enough to taste blood. The voice began to cry. I had heard Daniel cry only twice in our marriage. Once when his father died. Once at the kitchen table when he said he could not keep doing this. He cried quietly, ashamed of the sound, swallowing each breath before it could become a sob. The thing in the vent did it perfectly. "Something is wrong down here," he said. "I think I hurt myself. There is so much blood." I pressed both palms against my ears. "Elaina, please help me. You are not Daniel." Silence. Then directly beneath the bed, his voice whispered, "Then why do you still love me?" The floorboards bulged upward. Not much, just enough for the nails to squeal. I ran. I grabbed my coat, my keys, my medication, and the camcorder. I did not bother with shoes. The hallway stretched ahead of me, longer than it should have been, the wallpaper flowers twisting in the lamplight. Downstairs, the front door waited at the far end of the hall, a rectangle of moonlit glass. I reached it. The lock would not turn. Behind me, from the kitchen, came Daniel's voice again. "Do not leave me in the cellar." I twisted the lock until my fingers slipped. The metal was cold and slick. I looked down. My hand was covered in gray water. It poured from the keyhole in a thin, steady stream, running down the door, dripping onto the floorboards, spreading around my bare feet. The water smelled of pennies and mud. The cellar door opened behind me. I heard the latch lift. A breath rolled through the house. Not wind breath. Deep, wet, enormous. The kind of breath a giant takes before speaking. I turned around. The kitchen was dark, but the cellar door stood open, and below it descended a stairway that should have been black. Instead, a faint red light pulsed from beneath the house. Slow, dim, alive. With each pulse, the walls seemed to flex. I wanted to look away, but there is a terrible gravity to forbidden things. My eyes fixed on the opening. Something moved at the bottom of the stairs. A hand appeared on the lowest step. It was not Daniel's hand. It was too thin, too long, the fingers jointed in too many places. The nails were pale and curved. It rested there gently, almost politely. Then another hand appeared beside it. Then a face lifted into view. For years afterward, when people ask me what it looked like, I do not tell them the truth. I say it was dark. I say it was only a shape. I say I was in crisis, and memory cannot be trusted. But I remember it wore my mother's face badly, not like a mask. A mask has edges. This was worse. Her features had been arranged on something that did not understand faces except as tools. Her mouth sat too low. Her eyes were too far apart. Her skin hung slack and gray, shiny with cellar damp. Strands of her hair clung to its cheeks. When it smiled, the mouth opened sideways as well as down, stretching beyond the laws of bone. Elaina, it said, in Daniel's voice. Then in my mother. Then in mine. I ran to the sitting room and threw a chair through the front window. Glass exploded into the night. Cold air rushed in. I climbed over the sill, cutting my palms and knees, and fell onto the porch. I did not stop. I ran down the gravel drive barefoot, sobbing, slipping on stones, clutching my keys so tightly they pierced my skin. Behind me, the house did not roar. It did not chase me. It laughed in Aunt Livia's voice. The road was empty. The trees leaned overhead. The moon hung between clouds like a blind eye. I ran until my lungs burned. I ran until the house vanished behind the bend in the lane. I ran until I saw the distant glow of Ash Mills, only gas station. The man behind the counter was named Gus, according to his tag. He was heavy-set, with a gray beard and watery blue eyes. He looked up from a small television when I stumbled in, bleeding, soaked in sweat, wearing no shoes. For a moment, he did not move. Then he reached for the phone. I collapsed near a rack of chips and whispered, "Do not call my husband." He called emergency services anyway. While we waited, he wrapped my feet in clean towels and made me sit on a plastic chair near the register. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A freezer hummed. The television showed a woman smiling beside a map of approaching rain. Gus kept glancing at me. "You came from the Vane place," he said. I stared at him. "Bellwether Lane." I nodded, He swallowed. You should not have gone there. I started laughing. I laughed until my throat hurt. Everyone keeps saying that. He looked toward the dark windows. They brought your grandmother in here once, he said softly. Years ago. She was covered in mud. Said her husband was living under the floor. Said the house had learned how to cry. My laughter stopped. What happened to her? Gus opened his mouth. Then his eyes shifted to something behind me. The freezer hum died. The fluorescent lights flickered. Every hair on my body lifted. From the back of the gas station, where a narrow hallway led to the restroom, Daniel's voice called, Elaina. Gus went pale. I stood too quickly and nearly fell. The voice came again. Baby, what happened to you? Gus whispered, that is not possible. But my body was already turning. The hallway stretched behind the aisles, bright at first, then dimmer near the restroom door. A wet footprint darkened the tile. Then another. Daniel stepped into view. For one impossible second, I believed it was him. He wore the gray coat he had taken when he left me. His hair was mussed from rain. His face was pale with fear. His eyes filled with tears when he saw me. Elaina, he said, thank God. He took one step forward. The lights flickered again. In that flicker, his face changed. Not entirely, just enough. His smile stayed when the rest of his expression moved. Gus grabbed a shotgun from beneath the counter. The thing wearing Daniel looked at him. Gus lifted the gun with shaking hands. Get out. The thing blinked slowly. When it spoke, it used Gus's voice. Put it down, Gustav. Gus made a small, wounded sound. Nobody called him Gustav. Nobody living, maybe. The shotgun fired. The blast shattered the glass door behind the thing. Chips and candy flew from the shelves. My ears rang. Smoke filled the air. Daniel's body staggered back. For a moment, there was a hole in its chest. Not blood. No organs. Only packed wet leaves, black soil, and something pale moving inside like worms in fruit. Then the hole closed. The thing looked down at itself, almost curious. Gus fired again. This time, the lights went out. In the dark, I heard screaming. His scream first, then mine, then a sound like wet cloth being wrung out over a sink. I crawled behind the counter, hands slipping in something warm. Glass cut my palms. The emergency phone line crackled from where the receiver dangled. A dispatcher's voice called faintly. Hello, are you there? Hello. The lights came back on. Gus was gone. Only his boots remained behind the counter, placed neatly side by side, filled with gray water. The thing wearing Daniel stood in the aisle. Its head nearly touched the ceiling now. Its borrowed skin had loosened. Daniel's face sagged like melting wax. Beneath it, something dark and root-like shifted. Elaina, it said. I could not move. It knelt in front of me, joints bending wrong, coat stretching across shoulders that no longer matched a human frame. Do not be afraid. Its breath smelled like the cellar. I closed my eyes. I thought of Dr. Holloway. They cannot hurt you. I thought of Daniel. You are safe. I thought of my mother. Pretty girls should never sleep with their backs to the room. Then I opened my eyes and drove a shard of glass into the thing's cheek. It screamed in every voice I had ever loved. The sound shattered the remaining windows. My vision flashed white. I ran past it, through the broken door, into the road. Red and blue lights appeared in the distance. For one fragile second, hope returned. The police car sped toward the station, siren off, headlights bright. It skidded to a stop. 2 officers stepped out. One was a young man with a narrow face. The other was an older woman with silver hair tucked beneath her cap. I screamed for them to run. They did not. People never do when they think they carry authority. The older officer approached me with both hands raised. "Ma'am, get behind me." Behind her, the thing emerged from the gas station. The young officer shouted. The older officer turned. I will not describe what happened to them. Not because I cannot. Because if I put it into words, then it becomes real in one more place. I will say only this. The thing did not kill like an animal. It opened them like letters. And when it was done, their voices joined the others. By morning, I was found 7 miles away, walking along the shoulder of County Road 16. A truck driver saw me and called it in. I was barefoot, hypothermic, and covered in blood that was not all mine. I kept repeating the same sentence. It learns the voice you obey. They took me to the hospital, then to another hospital, then back to St. Clement. Dr. Holloway visited me 3 days later. He looked older. His cardigan was navy. His pen was silver. He sat beside my bed and folded his hands. "Elaina," he said gently, "Daniel is dead." I looked at him. They had found Daniel in his apartment 2 towns over. He had been dead for at least a day before I heard his voice in the house, before the gas station, before the thing wore him. The police believed I killed him. They believed I killed Gus too. And the officers, they believed many things. People will believe almost anything if the alternative requires them to look beneath the floor. Dr. Holloway explained that I had experienced a severe psychotic break, likely triggered by grief, isolation, and medication disruption. He used words like delusion, dissociation, violent episode, fragmented memory. He said the human mind can create entire worlds under unbearable pressure. I asked him about the boots. "What boots?" he said. "Gus's boots, Daniel's boots, my grandfather's boots." He wrote something down. I asked him about the gray water. He asked if I was hearing voices right now. I laughed. "Not right now." He smiled with sad relief. Then his pen rolled off his clipboard and under the bed. He bent to retrieve it. While he was down there, something beneath my mattress whispered in his voice. "Soon." I did not react. That is how you survive. You learn not to react. They kept me at St. Clement for 11 months. At first, I fought. I screamed that the house was alive, that Bellwether Lane had swallowed my grandfather, my grandmother, my mother, Daniel, Gus, the officers, and now parts of me that I could not name. I demanded they search the cellar. I begged them to burn the house. They adjusted my medication. The voices softened. The visions dimmed. But they never stopped. At night, the vents whispered. The drain in my bathroom hummed lullabies in my mother's voice. The walls clicked with fingernails. Sometimes I woke to find muddy footprints around my bed, circling and circling, though the door had been locked from the outside. No one else saw them, or if they did, they chose health over truth. By spring, I learned how to perform sanity. I attended group sessions. I made eye contact. I said things like, I understand that my experiences were symptoms of illness. I said, I take responsibility. I said, I am not a danger to myself or others. I said, I want to heal. Dr. Holloway looked proud. You are doing excellent work, Elaina. Thank you. Do the voices still tell you frightening things? No. A lie. Do you still believe there was something in the house? I hesitated exactly the right amount. I believe I was very unwell. He smiled. Not too much, just enough. I became an obedient patient. That is what monsters want too, by the way. Obedience. The trial never happened. My case became complicated. Evidence vanished. The security footage from the gas station showed static from the moment I entered until sunrise. The patrol car camera recorded only darkness and the sound of rain, though it had not rained that night. Daniel's autopsy raised questions no one wanted to answer. Soil was found in his lungs. Fresh soil. Root fibers under his fingernails. Gray water in his shoes. In the end, I was committed instead of convicted. A tragedy, people called it. A woman undone by grief. A fragile mind. A beautiful disaster. After 11 months, Aunt Livia visited. She sat across from me in the hospital garden under a sky the color of dirty wool. She had aged since I last saw her. Her hands shook around her paper cup of tea. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then she said, I am sorry. I looked at her. You knew. She closed her eyes. My mother knew too, didn't she? Aunt Livia nodded. Why send me there? Her face crumpled. I did not think it would wake for you. Wake. It slept after your grandmother died. For years, the house was quiet. Why would you think that? Because we fed it silence. The garden seemed to tilt. A nurse laughed somewhere behind us, bright and distant. Aunt Livia leaned closer. Every family has a place where its sins collect. Ours had that cellar. Your grandfather did not disappear. He went willingly at first. He heard his dead brother calling him from beneath the stone. Your grandmother tried to seal it after he was taken. Your mother heard it too, all her life. That is why she was cruel sometimes. Cruelty is easier than terror. I remembered my mother brushing my hair, pulling until my scalp burned. I remembered her saying, "That is how things learn where to enter." She was trying to teach me. Badly, but trying. "Why me?" I whispered. Aunt Livia looked at my face for a long time, as if searching for someone else beneath it. "Because it does not want bodies, Elaina. Not really. Bodies are easy. It wants doors, minds with cracks in them. Grief, guilt, shame, bloodlines. It finds the soft place and speaks through it." I stood so quickly, my chair fell. "You knew what I was." "No," she said, crying now. "I knew what it was." I backed away from her. She reached for me. "Elaina, listen. The house burned." I stopped. "What?" "After they found you, after everything, the town burned it. People finally listened. The fire took all night. Hope hurts when it enters a person who has learned to live without it." "The cellar?" I asked. Aunt Livia shook her head. There was no cellar left, only ash and stone. For the first time in nearly a year, I breathed fully. Then Aunt Livia said, "But they found something under the foundation." The air left me. She pulled a folded newspaper clipping from her purse and slid it across the garden table. The article was short. Local paper, poorly printed photograph. Beneath the ruins of the Vane house, workers had uncovered a circular stone well sealed by an iron grate. The article called it a likely colonial-era cistern. An odd historical feature. Experts would be consulted. In the grainy photo, men in hard hats stood around the opening. One of them was looking down, smiling, not happily, obediently. I touched the photograph. Aunt Livia whispered, "It was never the house." That night, she hanged herself in her motel room. At least, that is what they told me. They said she used a scarf. They said she left no note. But when they found her, her shoes were placed neatly beside the bed, filled with gray water. After that, I stopped speaking for 13 days. Silence can be a shelter if you make it thick enough. When I spoke again, I told Dr. Halloway I understood what had happened. I told him my aunt's death had triggered old delusions. I told him the newspaper clipping had become part of my illness. He praised my insight. Eventually, I was released. Not free. People like me are never free. We are monitored by calendars, pill bottles, polite questions, concerned glances, and the invisible leash of our own history. I was placed in supported housing in a town 3 hours away. A small apartment on the 2nd floor, above a bakery. The rooms smelled of yeast and sugar in the morning. The windows looked onto a bus stop and a laundromat. My neighbors were a retired teacher named Mrs. Bell, a young couple with a baby, and a man across the hall who played jazz too loudly on Sundays. It was a good place. Safe, people said. I kept the lights on. I slept facing the door. I took my pills. I built routines like fences. For a while, nothing happened. Then winter came. The first sign was the drain. A smell rose from the bathroom sink one evening while I was brushing my teeth. Not sewage, not mold, mud, pennies, dead leaves under rain. I turned the tap on full and watched water spiral down the drain. For a moment, the water ran gray. I called the building manager. He found nothing. The second sign was Mrs. Bell. She knocked on my door with a plate of lemon biscuits and asked if I had been singing at night. I said no. She smiled nervously. Must be the pipes. The third sign was the baby. I heard it crying through the wall at 3:17 in the morning. Thin, desperate cries. Then the mother's tired voice. Shush, Lily, shush. The baby stopped. Then a different voice came through the wall. My mother. Pretty girls should never sleep with their backs to the room. I pressed my hands over my mouth and did not scream. By morning, the young couple had moved out without telling anyone. People do that in cities. They vanish into leases and forwarding addresses. Nobody asks too much. I asked Mrs. Bell if she had seen them leave. She said yes, very early. The father carried boxes. The mother carried the baby. Then Mrs. Bell frowned. No, she said, that is strange. What? She was not carrying the baby. I waited. She was carrying a blanket. I suppose the baby was in it. But Mrs. Bell's face went pale. The blanket was dripping. The building manager found wet footprints in the stairwell that afternoon. Tiny ones. A baby's. They led down to the basement laundry room and stopped at a floor drain. After that, I bought a camera for my apartment. Then another. Then 6 more. I placed them in every room except the bathroom. I could not bear the thought of seeing something behind me in the shower. I told myself I was being rational. Evidence protects the sane and condemns the sick. For 3 weeks, the cameras showed nothing. Then one night, I woke to the sound of someone humming. The melody came from the living room. It was the song my mother used to hum when she cleaned the kitchen after one of her bad moods. A soft little tune with no words, rising and falling like a hand over a cradle. I opened the camera feed on my phone. The living room appeared in gray night vision. Sofa, lamp, bookshelf, front door, nothing else. The humming continued. I switched to the kitchen camera. Empty. Hallway. Empty. Bedroom. For a moment, I did not understand what I was seeing. The camera mounted above my bedroom door showed my bed from the corner of the ceiling. I was in it, sitting upright, phone glowing in my hand. And behind me, pressed flat against the wall above the headboard, was my mother. Not the thing wearing her. My mother. She clung there like an insect, fingers dug into the plaster, knees bent out to the sides, navy burial dress hanging from her body. Her hair dangled around her face. Her sewn mouth strained against black thread. Her eyes were open and full of pity. On the screen, she slowly raised one finger to her lips. Behind my real body, the wall creaked. I did not turn around. My phone screen went black. A voice whispered into my hair. "Good girl." I fainted. When I woke, it was morning. The bedroom wall above my bed was smooth and empty. No marks, no cracks. My cameras were gone. All of them. Not broken, gone. In their place, on the kitchen counter, sat 7 small piles of wet black soil. I called Dr. Halloway. He sounded pleased to hear from me. I told him I was struggling. I did not tell him why. He adjusted my medication. The pills grew stronger. The world slowed further. My hands shook. My mouth dried. I lost words in the middle of sentences. At the bakery, the woman behind the counter asked if I was all right, and I stared at her name tag for 10 seconds before remembering how to read. But the voices became faint again. Whispers behind glass. Scratches under music. For a while, I could pretend. Then the letter arrived. No return address. My name written in my grandmother's hand. Inside was a single page. Not old, not yellowed. Fresh white paper. The message read, "The well is open." Below it was a drawing. A circle. Inside the circle, an eye. Inside the eye, a door. I took the letter to the police. The officer at the desk read my file first. I saw the change in his face when my name entered the computer. His voice became careful, soft. "Do you have anyone we can call?" I took the letter back. That night, every sink in my apartment filled with gray water. The toilet, the bathtub, the kitchen sink, even the little drip tray beneath the refrigerator dispenser, which I had never used. The water rose without overflowing. It sat perfectly still, reflecting the ceiling lights. Then faces appeared beneath the surface. Daniel, Gus, the 2 officers, Aunt Livia, my grandmother, my grandfather, whom I knew only from photographs, my mother. They floated below the gray water, eyes open, hair drifting around them. Their mouths moved in silence. I stood in the hallway with my back against the front door and watched them speak without sound. Then the bathtub water rippled. My mother's face rose closer to the surface. Her stitched lips parted, thread snapping one black strand at a time. She whispered, "It is hungry because you ran." The lights went out. When they came back, the water was gone. In the dry bathtub lay Daniel's wedding ring. I did not sleep that night. By dawn, I understood something. The doctors had been wrong, but not entirely. Psychosis is a rupture in reality. That much is true. But they think reality belongs to everyone equally, solid and shared, like a road beneath our feet. They do not understand that reality is skin. Some people are born with thin places. Some people are wounded until they split. Through those openings, things can look in. And sometimes, when they look in long enough, they learn how to climb through. I started researching the well. Public records, old maps, newspaper archives, historical society files, anything I could access from the library computer. Ash Mill had once been called Bellwether Hollow. Before that, something older. The land belonged to a settlement that vanished in 1791 after a winter of sickness, famine, and religious mania. The surviving records were fragments, sermons, court notes, a diary by a traveling minister who described the settlers as plagued by voices rising from the earth. One passage made my hands go numb. They gather nightly at the covered well and listen as children to mother. The voices below speak in the tones of beloved dead and command obedience. 3 men have cast themselves down. 2 women claim to have returned carrying new souls in old bodies. I fear the aperture is not a well, but an ear, and we are the whispered thing. The settlement burned. The well was sealed. Generations later, my family built over it. I printed everything. I mailed copies to newspapers, police departments, universities, paranormal researchers, religious scholars, anyone whose address I could find. Most never replied. Some sent polite dismissals. One professor from Vermont wrote back asking if I had more photographs. 2 days later, his wife emailed me. She said he had gone missing. His shoes were found in his office, filled with water. I stopped sending letters. It did not stop coming, because that is the final cruelty. Knowledge does not save you. It only teaches you the shape of the thing that is eating you. In March, the bakery below my apartment closed after the owner complained of voices from the ovens. In April, Mrs. Bell stopped playing her morning radio. When I knocked, she spoke through the door and asked if I could hear her husband singing. Her husband had been dead 11 years. In May, the man across the hall was found standing in the basement laundry room, barefoot, smiling into the floor drain. He had pulled out all his teeth and arranged them in a circle around his feet. He survived, technically, but he never spoke again. Whenever nurses tried to move him away from water, he wept like a child. By June, I knew the building was lost. It was not following me anymore. It had rooted. The well had opened somewhere beneath us, not physically, maybe not yet, but in whatever dark anatomy runs under places and families and minds. A hidden vein, a throat in the earth. It had found the pipes, the drains, the dreams. It had found me. I decided to go back. Not to the house. The house was ash. To the well. I stole a car from the hospital parking lot after my final appointment with Dr. Holloway. That sounds dramatic, but it was boring and clumsy. A woman left her keys on a bench while arguing into her phone. I took them. The car was blue and smelled like fast food and children's crayons. I drove to Ash Mill under a sky swollen with rain. Bellwether Lane was blocked by a rusted chain and a sign that read "No trespassing." I parked before the chain and walked. The lane was narrower than I remembered. Weeds grew through the cracks. Trees leaned in from both sides, their branches interlacing overhead until the road became a tunnel. The air was warm and wet. Mosquitoes whined around my ears. With each step, I heard voices. Not loud, not close, just beneath everything. Daniel telling me to come home. My mother calling me ungrateful. Aunt Livia sobbing apologies. Dr. Holloway saying, "You are safe." I kept walking. The house was gone. Only the foundation remained. A black rectangle of charred stone surrounded by weeds. The chimney stood alone at one end, cracked but upright. It looked like a monument to a throat. At the center of the foundation, surrounded by yellow caution tape, sagging with rainwater, was the well. The iron grate had been removed. The opening was maybe 6 feet across, lined with old stones slick with moss. Darkness filled it completely. Not shadow, darkness as substance. It seemed to rise just below the rim, trembling like water. I stood at the edge. The voices stopped. Silence spread through the clearing. Then something far below breathed in. My knees weakened. I had brought a backpack. Inside were 3 rode flares, a bottle of lighter fluid, a rosary from a thrift shop, my grandmother's diary, Daniel's ring, my mother's hairbrush, and every pill I owned. I do not know what I believed I could do. Burn it, poison it, pray it shut, offer it the objects it had used to hook me, and hope symbols mattered. Hope makes fools of us all. I lit the first flare. Red light exploded in my hand, hissing smoke. I dropped it into the well. It fell for a long time. Too long. The red glow shrank, became a star, then vanished. No sound came back. I poured the lighter fluid, dropped the rosary, threw in the diary, the ring, the hairbrush. One by one, my pathetic little offerings disappeared into the dark. Then I opened the pill bottles and poured the tablets into my palm. A voice from the well said, "Elaina, not my mother, not Daniel." My voice, but not as I heard myself. This voice was older, calmer, patient beyond patience. I looked down. A pale shape floated just beneath the darkness. A face, mind. It rose until I could see every detail. My eyes, my mouth, my scar on the chin from falling off a bicycle at 8. But this other Elaina was serene, whole, beautiful in a way I had never been because nothing had touched her. No grief, no fear, no illness, no guilt. She looked up at me from the well and smiled. "You have been so tired," she said. I began to cry. "Yes, you have carried it alone. Yes, no one believed you. No, no one stayed." I shook my head. She lifted a hand from the dark water. It was my hand. Same fingers, same bitten nails, same faint blue veins beneath pale skin. "Come down," she said. I laughed through my tears. "That is your grand plan." "Not down," she said. "In." The word moved through me. In. I understood then why my grandfather walked to the cellar, why my grandmother wrote until her mind cracked, why my mother lived cruel and afraid, why Daniel's voice had been so perfect. The thing did not simply kill, it invited. It offered relief from the unbearable burden of being one person in one body with one broken mind. It offered an end to separation. All my life, I had been alone inside my skull. The well promised I did not have to be. Behind me, branches snapped. I turned. Dr. Holloway stood at the edge of the clearing. For a moment, I thought he was another imitation. Then I saw the mud on his shoes, the fear in his eyes, the silver pen clipped to his shirt pocket. Real, alive, human. Elaina, he said carefully, step away from the well. I stared at him. How did you find me? Your phone. The police are coming. I almost smiled. Police do not help here. He moved closer. I believe that you are in danger. That is new. I mean it. The well behind me whispered in my voice. He lies. Dr. Holloway flinched. He heard it. I saw him hear it. All the careful architecture of his certainty cracked across his face. The doctor, the scientist, the gentle man with framed certificates stood in the ruins of my family home and heard a dead thing speak from under the earth. What was that? He whispered. I laughed. A symptom. The well breathed again. Dr. Holloway looked past me, down into the opening. His face slackened. His pupils widened. Who do you hear? I asked. His lips trembled. My daughter. I had not known he had one. She died, he whispered. She was 4. The well spoke in a little girl's voice. Daddy. Dr. Holloway made a sound that broke my heart. Do not answer it, I said. He took one step forward. I grabbed his arm. He shoved me away with surprising strength. Not cruelly, desperately. His eyes were full of tears, fixed on the dark. Daddy, I am cold. No, I said. Doctor, listen to me. It learns the voice you obey. But he was already kneeling. I tried to pull him back. He struck me across the face. My head snapped sideways. I tasted blood. He did not even notice. His daughter laughed from the well. Dr. Holloway leaned over the edge. Small white hands reached up from the darkness. So many hands. Not 2. Dozens. They took his face gently between them. He smiled. Then they pulled. He went in without a scream. One moment he was there, cardigan dark with rain, silver pen shining. The next, the well swallowed him. His shoes remained at the rim. Gray water filled them slowly from the inside. The police never came. Or maybe they did and turned back. Or maybe they came and are down there now, speaking in the voices of people they loved. I stayed beside the well until night fell. Rain began just after sunset. It fell straight down, soft and warm, darkening the ash, tapping the stones, sliding into the well without sound. I should have run. I should have kept running forever. Instead, I sat on the foundation stones and listened. The well did not speak again for hours. When it finally did, it used no borrowed voice. It spoke as itself, not words at first, pressure, meaning. a vastness pushing gently against the inside of my skull. It showed me the earth beneath towns, riddled with old mouths. Wells, cellars, mines, drains, graves. It showed me families building homes over hunger and calling it land. It showed me people sitting in bright rooms above dark openings, praying their walls were thick enough. It showed me that Bellwether was not special. It was only awake. There are others. Some sleep beneath churches, dreaming in hymns. Some breathe through hospital vents. Some whisper from abandoned subway tunnels. Some wait at the bottoms of lakes, wearing the voices of drowned children. Some are older than language, and some are young, born from the pressure of human misery, packed tight beneath floors. They are patient because hunger does not die. They are kind because kindness opens doors. They are cruel because cruelty opens them faster. And they love us. That was the worst thing it showed me. Not hatred. Love. A love so completed cannot distinguish between holding and consuming. Near dawn I stood. My clothes clung to me. My hair was plastered to my face. Mud covered my feet. In the east, the sky paled behind the trees. The well waited. I looked down one last time. My reflection looked back from the darkness, though there was no water near the surface. She smiled. I smiled too. Then I turned and walked away. You thought I went in, didn't you? That would be a cleaner ending. A woman broken by madness returns to the source and is swallowed. Tragic, neat, safe. But I did not go in. I left. I returned to my apartment. I washed the mud from my legs. I threw away my pills. I made tea. I sat at my kitchen table as morning light filled the room. The drain whispered my name. I whispered back. That was 3 years ago. Since then, I have learned many things. I learned that if I listen carefully, I can hear the mouths beneath almost any place. Not always clearly, not always close, but there, under basements, under wells, under old houses and new apartments and schools and churches and hospitals, under the bright tiled floors of shopping centers, under playgrounds where mothers check their phones while children swing above the dirt. I learned that the voices do not need me to believe in them, only to hear them. I learned that people like me have always been called mad because we are the first to notice when reality leaks. And I learned that doors open both ways. Tonight, I am speaking into a microphone in a small room with blankets over the windows and a glass of gray water beside my hand. The camera is on. The red recording light glows like the flare I dropped into the well. You are listening. That means something. A voice moves through wires differently than through air, but it still moves. It enters through headphones. It settles in the warm dark behind your eyes. It waits there, gentle as a thought you almost had yourself. Maybe you are alone right now. Maybe the room around you is dark, except for the screen. Maybe there is a hallway behind you. Maybe there is a door you did not close all the way. Do not look yet. Looking is a kind of invitation. Instead, listen. Beneath my words, beneath the hush in your speakers, beneath the tiny electric crackle you blame on the recording, there is another sound. A breath, deep, wet, patient. Maybe you hear it now. Maybe you do not. You will. After this story ends, you might go to bed. You might laugh at yourself for feeling uneasy. You might brush your teeth and watch your reflection carefully, because some childish part of you expects a face behind your shoulder. You might turn off the light and climb under the covers, telling yourself that horror is only horror because it stops. But when you lie down, you will have to choose. Face the wall or face the room. And if sometime after 3 a.m, you hear someone you love whisper your name from the vent, the drain, the closet, the baby monitor, the hallway, the floor beneath your bed, do not answer. Do not move. Do not breathe too loudly, because it knows the voice you obey. And if it sounds afraid, if it sounds lonely, if it sounds like someone you failed, someone you miss, someone you would give anything to hold one more time, remember what I have told you. That is not love calling. That is the mouth beneath the house, and it has learned your name. Thank you for listening. If this story unsettled you, leave the light on a little longer tonight. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more nightmares, and tell me in the comments what voice would make you open the door. But be careful when you type the name. Some things listen better when they are invited. Good night.
Whispers of a love so true, painting dreams of me and you. And I'll hold you close